Ms. Sasha has worked with various corporations before joining Allies and Associates, but she's also a member of different professional bodies, including Tanzania Women Lawyers Association, TAWLA. She also serves as a deputy treasurer and women lawyers representative in the governing council of the East Africa Law Society. Also, for now, she serves as the executive committee member representing female lawyers of Bagamoyo Zone, Dar es Salaam. So, Ms. Sasha will lead this session. So, I'd like now to welcome to take the floor. Karibu sana Hafsa, you have the floor now.
So for the purpose of saving time, because we are way behind, I would like to call our panelists to just come and sit here. We'll be calling you one by one. Stephen Gitenga, Gloria Bayo, Noel Shio, and Blackett Sharp. I hope I haven't murdered your name. I'm very sorry if I did. Please come in front and then proceed from there. So our discussion today is going to focus on succession planning and advocates' welfare. So it's quite interesting because I was having a conversation with my brother there, he's not there, okay, Kenneth, about him taking paternity leave. And we were talking about one company that gives men about maybe 4 months for paternity leave, and most men actually they don't go there to ask for that leave because of so many reasons. So I asked him, would you, if you're able to be afforded this leave, would you take it? And he said he can only afford 2 weeks out of his office because he has a business to run. And I asked him, how about succession planning? And at what point exactly do law firms implement succession planning? Is it during the end of your career, by the time that you want to retire, or during the time where you're sharp, you're energetic, you're running that firm, that's where you put the structure, management, and so on and so forth? And he said the market does not allow it. So I found it very interesting. And when I was researching about this topic, I came across a very interesting article. The heading said, why attorneys hesitate discussing succession planning. And in that article, the author mentioned something about lawyers do not like to discuss about succession planning because they don't want to think about retirement. And by the time they think about retirement, it's already too late. Okay, so my first speaker is going to be Stephen Gitenga. And Stephen Gitenga is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya since 2004, a member of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, team leader at Gitonga, Moraith and Companies Advocate, among other things. He's also a member of Alliot Global Alliance. Stephen Gitenga will be addressing about the importance of succession planning for lawyers, tips and the practice in Kenya. So I hope Stephen will also be able to address the 2 articles or that conversation that I have mentioned before. And I would also like each and every one of the speakers, if they can afford to, address that one because it covers most of the areas. And I would also like, and I would appreciate if you, any of the speakers can afford us what is succession planning and at which particular point the business is supposed to implement a succession planning. Thank you very much, and Gitenga, welcome.
My topic is interesting, yes, it's succession planning, advocates, welfare. The first thing that comes to mind when we mention succession, especially for those of us who do litigation, is succession in the sense of death and transition. But we're going to look at a different kind of succession today. How many of you know of Lionel Messi, Wesley Snipes, Mike Tyson, Cristiano Ronaldo? Those are athletes that are recognizable by everyone. The average age of an athlete at that level, retiring, is anything between 30 to 40 years. Research shows us that most of us advocates retire at the age of 65 to 75. Most are increasingly retiring earlier and venturing into other fields. And of course, there's the inevitable, some of us die and leave our farms in limbo. So what is succession planning? Succession planning is, and this applies mostly for firms that are sole practitioners and smaller practices, because most of the big law firms have a self-executing succession mechanism. And what do I mean by this is that a firm that has typically 10, 12, 15 lawyers would not worry too much about the death, retirement, exit of a partner. Illustratively, one of the biggest law firms and recognizable names in Africa, Bowman's, had the way we were marketing 15 years through participating in tenders and marketing is very different from how young people today are marketing. You'll be amazed at just how much they can bring in terms of new energy and knowledge. Transition clients, I think we have talked about that. Reward departing partners. This is important. Some of the worst disputes that are there in our courts now, like the one I've mentioned about a widow who went to lay claim to intellectual property belonging to a law firm that was founded by the husband, is because there is no system for rewarding people who are going. Like, if a partner at retirement is entitled to X under the partnership deed, because first have a partnership deed. If you don't have one, then you don't know how to treat or how to remunerate a departing partner. When that partner goes and is in financial straits, he'll come back and become a bother to the firm. So I think the point is made that reward departing partners. I mean, it's also fair if a founding partner, for example, decides to retire, let them feel like, yes, I have been appreciated by this firm, and you will not have problems going forward. Now, welfare themes. This is a topic that's very dear to me. I have made a couple of presentations because law is a very, very stressful profession. I don't know in Tanzania, but in Kenya it is. In whatever branch you have, you are. Whether it's closing land conveyance, whether it's the institutional problems of government and bureaucracy, you want to deliver for a client, litigation cases take forever, in court, your clients are frustrated, they change lawyers, they don't pay you, so altogether, law is a difficult and stressful profession. We must have a work-life balance, and I have discussed some tips to reclaim control, because I don't know about Tanzania, but in Kenya it's become a big problem, especially the younger demographic, the younger lawyers who are joining the profession. As more and more lawyers are joining the profession, opportunities are shrinking. As the economy is shrinking and companies are spending less money on legal budgets, and please call me out on time. As corporations are spending less on legal fees, then it's becoming increasingly difficult for young law firms to set up and take off. I set up in 2007, so it's been 15 years. A person setting up today has a different set of problems. Companies are even setting up in-house legal departments to avoid paying outside counsel. In Kenya, we even had a presidential direction. Our found does a lot of work for government and regulators, or hitherto that directive, where State House, the president gave an executive order saying, take all the work back to the state law office. My point is that with the shrinking revenues in the legal industry, people need to innovate. As a result, people are stressed. And when they are stressed, the output of their social and professional life diminishes. If you're struggling to achieve work-life balance, you're not alone. Understand how to better manage your time, dispatch from work and care for yourself. Leaving the office at 11 in the evening does not mean that you're being productive. Activity is not necessarily productivity, because the law of diminishing returns. The more you stay in that office, the less your mind is getting out, and you're literally just lowering the quality of your life without a commensurate benefit. If you're married to your work, you consider the costs. You will lose family, friends, and life will literally pass you by. Fatigue, when you're tired, your professional output. There's a direct and an inverse relationship there. Poor health, I don't think we went to law school, worked hard. When you have money, then you can't enjoy this money because of poor health. And poor health is not just lifestyle diseases, it's stress, and just a very poor quality of life is a disease in itself. You know, you leave work at 11, you're there at 6. It does not mean that you're hardworking, it probably means you're a terrible manager of time. Strike a better work-life balance, I think we look at that. Caring for yourself, relax, volunteer. But some of you volunteer. Social work is such good therapy. If you haven't tried it, try it sometimes. Develop a support system. Join forces with co-workers. Unhealthy competition in law firms is common, and it's common with the bigger firms, no offense, where everybody wants to shine individually. If you develop a support system, you grow together. Okay? When family conflicts arise at home, speak to some.
Sorry, I'm giving you 1 minute.
Oh, okay, actually, sure. Okay, I'm actually winding up. Develop a support system. Know when to seek professional help. There is no shame if you say there's a problem. I won't run through those ones, but you can see setting limits, managing time, learn to say no. There is nothing wrong with saying, I can't wait. And detach from work, take a hike, get something for yourself as well, and consider your options. Lastly, alcohol. And this is something that people must talk about because it's a big problem in our profession, across borders, by the way. And Shazad, I think possibly in our group we need to speak about not just alcohol, but this work-life balance and welfare situation some more. I'll leave you with a quip about a man. He said alcohol is not bad, but never touch it before sunset. And more importantly, don't touch it after sunset. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that remarkable presentation. We talked about managing time, but we gave you only 10 minutes, and you're a good example of not managing because you went ahead and you missed at least 20 minutes. So, as you have heard Stephanie, he talks about in succession planning. He said it's very important to have system, and system includes IP, hiring people who have the capacity and who will reflect and complement what the dream and the future of the firm. It talks about insurance, structures, developing and growing your people, so that when you're retiring, you don't have to cut the founder syndrome because you know that your people do not have the capacity to run your business. And in welfare, he talked about to achieve work-life balance, activity is not necessarily productivity, and actually managing time. So our second speaker is going to be Gloria Calabam, and she is going to address what is the law practice on succession planning for lawyers in Tanzania. Gloria is, as an advocate of the High Court of Tanzania, Vice President of Tanganyika Law Society, and Managing Partner of Kitsungi Attorneys, a law firm based in Dar es Salaam, and a Director of Makiuli Consult Company Limited, among other things. Gloria, you are welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Coming on the heels of our dear presenter, he preempted with most everything, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But as I came here and given this topic, I remembered what we used to study in secondary school and how we used to cram all these points. And my daughter is now in Form 6. She does the same thing. So sometimes I ask her, do you understand even what is it that you are cramming? There could be differences. But one of the things I remember was Nile is Egypt and Egypt is Nile. If you look at it at this particular time, it's probably very, very relevant because so many demographics have changed that make Nile not being necessarily Egypt and make Egypt not necessarily being able to take care of the Nile. So where am I going with all this as relates to succession planning? Well, it just shows us that sometimes we need to have a plan that can actually foresee the future and place us in a good situation to address the things that can come. So I'm trying to go with the slides as well. So succession planning is a strategic and administrative framework that will facilitate for the transfer of technical skills, knowledge, and exposure. Emphasis on those three, on my point of view. Technical skills. You want the technical skills that you have to be transferred to the colleagues so that your firm can be able to keep the same prestige, and also that members in your firm can also benefit from what you already have or what somebody in your firm, not necessarily you might not be even the brightest person in that firm. So learn to know how to share knowledge across. As some of the speakers have said, sometimes a person who is junior to you can know much more about computers. You also want to tap into that technical skill as well. And also exposure is very, very important. People attending this conference, for example, have an age than those who are not attending this conference because you're learning something always. Now, for me, succession planning can be for continuity within the firm. The firm wants to have the continuity as I've spoken before, but also it can be for the client's interest if it is without the firm. It's important to observe that an individual has the managing critical incompetence and is well vested with skills, exposure, and experiences. Now, you have to identify individuals differently, as previously spoken by many speakers. You have to identify what is the strength for this person so that they can handle certain capabilities to ensure that you grow them into what they already have the basic foundation for. This succession planning will also provide growth for those advocates as you instill those skills, but then again, listen to them and understand what it is that they would prefer to be able to engage into, and then you grow into that. You might find like somebody in your organization who's actually a lawyer is pretty good in IT. Why not develop in that area? Because you still certainly need the combination of the two things. Continuity means sustainable working environment. So when you come back to members' welfare, advocates' welfare, it means they will be able to continue working in a good environment that nurture them and provide skill sets that they will also be able to use. So for continuity within the firm, human beings have a limited lifespan. We all know that. Either because of death or health condition. This is provided in Section 57 of the Advocates Act. What happens when you die, as previously spoken, we do not have the will in our law, so to speak, but it's provided on what can be done. Is it like a representative can take over, or the clients can decide like, no, we're not going to deal with this firm anymore. Sometimes it's competing priorities. We have seen people who have gone to greener pastures, maybe other jobs are said, but also could be a presidential appointment or any other public office that somebody has to go work with. And we found like it's rampant here in Tanzania. The firm naturally dies because those people who were the key figures in their firm have already moved on to other greener pastures, maybe not so green, but other responsibilities. So in these events, then there has to be a successor appointed who can take care of the firm if you're not going to be there. Sometimes it's the order of the court that happens. Say you are in the role of advocate, and now you are supposed to be taken off the role of advocate. So what will happen to your clients? There has to be a mechanism in which the clients can be taken care of, and this brings us to part B. In most cases, I said, most of us lead sole practitioners, or at least two partners who start a law firm. Now there's a risk to that, because if you are a sole practitioner and one of the things I mentioned before happens to you, then it means you have to close down the firm. Either you are incapacitated, or you died, or there is retirement. And sometimes the firm just feels like we cannot handle this matter, maybe there is conflict of interest or so forth. So they have to withdraw from representing the client. Now, then you have to get a successor firm that can carry out the job that you were doing for your client. And this need to be done expeditiously and orderly so that you can transfer the matter to another advocate. So, having known that it's important to have a succession plan in place, what's the way forward? I'm rounding up, that's a good thing. We need to have a behavioral change. I know it's hard for most of us, but it's better to have a firm of more than one person than to have a firm of a single person. And also to put in place a long-term strategic plan that can separate the company tools from personal tools. Simple things like the passwords, the administrative things like the account umbrella. It can delay a lot of stuff just because nobody else has access to your umbrella account or to your TRA account, all these other stuff. So it's about time we have a change of attitude and make sure that more people are involved into the organization so that it can manage to stay relevant and successful even upon the demise or changes in circumstances. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Is trust part of the welfare of the advocates? Because I've learned not to trust you again, because you said you don't have anything to speak because somebody else has already spoken every point you were coming here to speak in. Ended up spending so much time. Gloria, thank you so much for your presentation. What I've gathered from you is you have insisted in terms of longevity and continuity. And this is for the sake of the business and also the people who have trusted you enough to give you that business. So now I'm going to welcome my brother, Noel. Noel is going to speak and touch on succession planning, but he said because other speakers have already spoken everything he wanted to speak, now he will be sharing his experience and not so much on presentation, so that we don't kidnap you guys, do not go take your lunch. So Noel is a registered practicing advocate of the High Court of Tanzania, an arbitrator, a certified director, a husband, and a father of one kid, the one that we know of. Welcome.
So, in fear of not wasting a lot of time, I graduated from a moderator from the last year's LawCon to a speaker and a sponsor in this one. Thank you, Shazada, for always allowing me an opportunity to be part of this event. Today was initially not supposed to be a very comfort area for me. As you all know that I'm very passionate in other areas of law, apart from succession planning, but by virtue of me heading a HR firm, I guess succession planning should come by default. And for that, I intended to share with you some very practical issues. Gloria has spoken a lot about the situation in Tanzania. We don't have any law or regulations that mandate lawyers to have a succession plan. My brother Stephanie has spoken of his experience in Kenya. So I'm left to just share an experience, maybe answering the question that Hafsa had initially posed as to when does succession plan start and how is it actually going to be implemented. So to me, succession plan should start the moment you hire that person. You should have an ongoing succession plan, whether it's documented or it's undocumented, but it should be there. And lucky enough, most of our firms don't have it documented, and we as an HR firm, we can help you document it. So I'll share a bit of an experience. So maybe, because most of the things have been spoken by Stefan and Gloria, I'll just go to the why they already mentioned you should have a business succession plan to basically protect your interests, your client's interests, but how do you develop that next person that is actually going to take over your business or over your place? I always have that next man up mantra. There's always somebody else ready to fill in your shoes when you're not there. That person should be either succession attorney or assisting lawyer, as they are called in other developing jurisdictions. And you can do this simply by just setting SMART goals. SMART goals is when you first identify an area of interest that attorney is interested in, you actually build them up in that practice area. As Stephen was saying, that you might have an IP specialist in a conveyancing firm. You basically are not going to see the benefit of having that person because it's not going to shine. He's basically being given work that is not under his passion or something that he likes to do. Again, as an experience, when I just completed my first degree, my law degree, coming back home, I'm one of those few who have legal background history because my mom runs a law firm. So straight job, I was working with my mom as a managing partner. One thing that made me move from the law firm is that whenever we go to clients, it's the clients that will basically look at me like, oh, so she brought her son. So to me, I said, I'm gonna get my own. So to me, that made me move from working with my mom and started doing my own thing. So my first job, I went to work in a bank. And the first thing that I'm learning after my probation, the chief manager is telling me, Noel, what's the beauty of knowledge if you cannot pass it on? So this is a guy who basically used to teach me everything because I went in as an HR and slightly legal. You know, Indian banks, you sort of do everything. So, and I was like, so what do you mean, boss? And he said, I'm going to teach you everything about a bank. So I started working in operations as an HR. I was clearing checks, I was doing TIS transactions, I was working in the credit because of my legal background. So to me that helped me gain a lot of experience in areas that perhaps I would never have been exposed to. So fast forward 3 years, I moved from a bank, I go do my master's. Because I remember once those clients used to tell my mom, so you brought your son, Mama told me, go do your own thing. So I said, she's basically a specialist in corporate law and banking. And I said, okay, what do I do? At the time, there's a gas boom in Tanzania, poof, LLM, energy law and policy. Coming back to Tanzania, where's the work? The Mtwara project is definitely dead. What do? There's an engineering firm, has two very good clients, big clients in the oil and gas. There's an interview for a legal position. I apply and I'm there. So basically my role in that engineering firm was to serve those two clients in the oil and gas. There's basically nobody above me from which I could learn. So the MD is coming to me, no, what are you doing now? Once those deals were closed, I'm saying, boss, I'm your lawyer. And like, there's no legal job. So you just review the contracts and say, okay, we have a lot of deals with engineering companies coming to Tanzania that maybe are looking out to set up something. You can, if you still want to be here, this could be an area that you start practicing and maybe do your own thing. So I'm doing that. I'm helping a lot of engineering firms set up. So basically I'm building something that I didn't know I was building. So without knowing, there is the succession plan because there's no one, but I have an assistant now who's basically doing a lot of tendering because I was very good at that. Expression of interest, RFQs and everything. So that to me left a mark in me that in life, you don't need to be taught that this is your path. Sometimes you create your own path and then you leave a legacy behind. 3 years after the engineering experience comes ECO. And there I am, a local content coordinator. First thing my boss tells me, as a subordinate, your role is to make me shine. That's your number one job description. There's no job description. Your job is to make me shine. So you basically do everything that he's supposed to be doing. What he does is just approves it or corrects it. So he is confident, but when he's not in the office, I could step into in his shoes and do exactly what he was doing because I was literally doing whatever he's supposed to be doing. But his paycheck was definitely bigger than mine. So that to me is succession planning in motion and documented. And after that experience, I'm going out to head a company that is not headquartered in Tanzania. Somebody trusts you to head their company in your country. And you're here having juniors, people coming to report to you. So what do you tell them? You tell them exactly what you've learned in all these experiences. Create your own, make me shine. So if I get fired upstairs, I come to you. You made me do this. But the most important lessons I've learned is to power to delegate and to trust your subordinates. That is how you improve your people. That is how you grow your people. Now I can sleep at home. I know that the company is being in good hands. If my finance manager is there, if my HR manager is there, if my operations guy is there. So to me, those have been experiences that I said I will share instead of going to the PowerPoints. And maybe, so these I had an action plan on basically how we could have options that I will share the slides in the interest of time. But the new thinking about succession planning is that the only two things that are certain in life is death and taxes. And retiring. So death will come early. You don't need to wait until 50 for you to start preparing a succession plan. So this is basically the thing that we as lawyers at times feel that it's not time yet. It's not time for us to hang our boots. It's not time for us to leave our briefcases at home and make sure that the next guy comes up because of the either financial securities that we have. Probably we didn't have enough financial literacy to make sure that we are serving or to just trust your clients to somebody else. So we should start thinking differently. Yes, the officer has already given me a time. So what I had a few suggestions or recommendations to the law societies to start coming up with ideas of either mandating succession planning for lawyers, but most importantly, these days, a lot of lawyers are rather encouraged or engaging in tendering, and we need professional insurance indemnity. So maybe if the insurance companies could have it as a mandatory requirement before they give it to you, then maybe more lawyers will start looking at this matter and take it seriously and start implementing it. So to me, that is what I had to share in the interest of time. After, I hope I've written your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You mentioned about two things, that are setting, death and taxes, I add one, changes. Change is always there. So thank you very much, Noel. You have touched a lot, especially, I will remember whenever we talk about succession, I remember SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, time-based, and the powers to delegate and trust your subordinate. So our last speaker is Bhaktisha. Bhaktisha is going to address about the standard practice on advocates' welfare in Tanzania. And Bhakti, you have a very extensive bio. I feel, I wish I could read it all, but yes. Bhaktisha is an MPH, the founder of managing director at Impact Afya Limited in Dar es Salaam. Impact Afya was founded in 2015 to provide corporate health and wellness services. Impact Afya partners with Workplace Options USA for design and delivery cultural sensitive well-being solutions, further alimented by Impact Afya Advisory Board, consisting of locally and internationally owned medical professionals. Back to you, welcome.
Right, so a very good afternoon to everyone, and I think I can see it's already beyond lunchtime, so I will be very brief. Thank you for that introduction. Sorry for an extensive bio there, no need to go through the whole thing. So my job today is to be a lawyer by profession. I just met Noel yesterday. He was visiting me in my office on another assignment. And when I started introducing my company and what we do, he basically said, you really need to talk to this group tomorrow at this conference. And so I feel as if I'm gate crashing here, so please bear with me. Basically, I kind of saw the agenda and I saw a lot of reference to welfare. And my specialty is really well-being. And so Noel really has emphasized that I should talk about well-being. And so the first thing I want to do is just kind of, distinguish between what is welfare and what is well-being. And then I will go into focus more and more on well-being. When we look at welfare, this is more of a social welfare. And this looks at, this is a broad concept regarding looking after the well-being of individuals, families, and communities, and how the government responds and supports the needs of the community. And this could be economic needs, this could be health needs, this could be overall well-being needs, infrastructure needs, etc. And so it is basically subsidizing the needs of the community. That is what welfare kind of refers to. Well-being, on the other hand, is very much multidimensional because if you look at the mental, physical, emotional, there are like altogether about 7 dimensions of well-being. And I will come to that a little bit later rather than spending time. But well-being influences the need for welfare services. So based on a specific professional group or based on the community or based on the general public, what is their status, what is their health status, what is their economic status. Decisions can be made regarding whether they can be recipients for welfare. So this is the difference that I really wanted to point out. Now, here is a survey. Unfortunately, in Tanzania, we really do not have a lot of data collection, we do not have any statistical analysis, and I would really, as a well-being company, we are collecting this data on the clients that we serve. But this is my first interaction with a lawyers group, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do some survey with this group to see at what point this profession is when it comes to well-being. So this survey was conducted in 2016. This is from the USA, and around 13,000 lawyers were surveyed across the country. And what they really identified is that from these 13,000 lawyers, around 28.3% were suffering from depression. 19.3% demonstrated anxiety. 22.7% were suffering from some level of stress. What is also interesting is that, now this was at the time the survey was conducted, but then when the lawyers were asked about, did they have any concerns with depression or anxiety, around 45.7% say that yes, they had experienced depression at some point in their careers. Okay, that is a pretty high percent. And the same thing with anxiety, around 61.1% of the lawyers reported that they had experienced anxiety at some point in their career as well. And this really shows that the profession, the lawyer's profession, is a highly stressful profession. And as professionals, we really need to look at how do you manage the stress, the anxiety, the depression, etc. Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm going to try very hard to get to the 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Right. So I think when we really look at your profession, it is very demanding. I think we all, there is absolutely no argument about the demands that this profession has on your time. And so the important criteria is that for this profession, you need to be very good at time management. This has already been, been mentioned earlier. You need to be focused. You need to be able to concentrate. You need to be able to make intelligent decision making for your clients. You need to have that work-life balance. And energy management, how are you managing your own energy levels? That also becomes very important. And there is a whole science behind this. What we see, however, is that the profession encounters overwork. There is a lot of, there is total lack of physical activity. Generally that is what we are seeing, that there is a lack of physical activity because we feel that there isn't enough time to go exercise or to engage in physical activity. Unhealthy eating patterns because you are on the road all the time and therefore not really bothered about what you are consuming and how it is affecting your own health and your total body function. There is lack of sleep. And lack of sleep means it results in multiple health issues. All these habits, all the unhealthy habits, they really result in a lot of multiple health issues as well. And of course, addictions is another one as well, that where we see alcohol, smoking, in some cases we see drug addictions as well. And this is what we see happening in the demanding professions. The end result is stress, burnout, depression, anxiety, and you kind of keep on, getting into that cycle over and over again. And something needs to be done about that. 4 minutes left. Definitely, I will finish in 4 minutes. Okay. So here are the tips. A lot of these tips have already been mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to, very quickly go through them. Set healthy boundaries, kind of know what type of assignments you are willing to take on. What can you take on? Ask yourself that question. Allow discomfort, learn how to say no. Ask for help when you need help. We have talked about succession planning, we have talked about training, we have talked about mentoring. Ask for that help rather than saying that I'm going to do it and then really kind of burn the bridges when you are trying to do that. Engage with like-minded people, so associations, people who are making you feel, who are positive, who are optimistic, rather than people who are putting you down. Technology has been mentioned also, embrace technology, because your profession is very document intensive. And so, how can you engage in, how can you embrace technology to make that easier for you? Because going through contracts, going through, this thousands of pages of documentation it can be very taxing on you. Mindfully plan your time. Mindfulness is a concept that is really catching on like wildfire now. And major corporates are now getting into mindfulness activities, and they really are having all these sessions for their staff to be able to manage their stress, anxiety, the mental health aspects, And then finally, treat yourself as your most important client. Self-care. Take care of yourself, because yes, we are here for our customers, but if you do not take care of yourself, then how will you take care of your customers? So these are, the top tips, and there is a very long list, but I don't want to go through that right now. Now, when we look at lawyer well-being, how do you define well-being? And there are several dimensions of well-being when it comes to when it comes to the dimensions, you look at your emotional dimension, you look at your intellectual dimension, occupational, physical, spiritual, social. And these handouts, I hope, will be distributed because each one of them has got the details about how do they apply to your own profession, to the lawyer's profession as well. Okay? Because all of these dimensions, they really work towards your total well-being. And if you are feeling good, then everything goes right. Okay, so recommendations, I think one of the points was to make recommendations. It's very important that a situation analysis is conducted. By situation analysis, surveys, assessments, tests, etc., health checks. If that is done, then we get a good idea of what are the trends in the group that we have here in Tanzania, what are the trends. And based on that, we can come up with intervention strategies. When it comes to your own workplaces, what is the effort towards promoting and prioritizing your healthy habits at the workplaces, physical activity, eating, rest, stress management, a lot of that comes into picture there. Learn to recognize the signs and symptoms of unwellness amongst your colleagues, amongst your peers, amongst your clients. This is my last slide. Break the stigma. You need to break the stigma of reaching out for help and seek professional support when needed. I think this is my last slide. Thank you very much. Maybe one more minute. So I think I'm done. My contact details are here, and so we can definitely have a chat regarding this later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhakti, and I'm sorry for giving you that question. It was necessary. Wow, if someone comes and asks me, what do lawyers in Tanzania likes to do? You know what I will answer? Wanapenda kumwagilia moyo. Yeah, so I was wondering, is it a result of working in a stressful environment, or this is actually buzz? Getting into depression and so on. So today's to Bhakti, this is actually the result of working in a stressful environment, and this occurs most to the people and the professionals who are practicing in environments that demand so much more from them. So I would like to welcome the audiences to ask the questions. I will only take 2 questions. For the interest of time. Yeah, so while we're waiting for the mic to go to the audience, I will give, I will give a chance to one of my panelists to add one more point.
I needed to say this before I would be remiss if I went back to my country without saying it. I heard people speak about multitasking. If you don't remember anything else I say today, please remember to stop multitasking. And I want you to do that research for yourself. It's a source of stress and it's a source of low quality of work. I heard people speak about multitasking like it's a good thing, and that hopefully Mrs. Bhakti will have an occasion to share that. I need you to stop and see how your anxiety levels go down and the quality of your work goes up. That's how the mind is wired. Thank you.
Actually, I have a question for Mr. Stephanie. As you said earlier, as the professional are joining the profession, as lawyers are joining the profession in Kenya, so works are shrinking. I wanted to ask actually, what measures actually have the legal profession in Kenya put in place to make sure that young lawyers are not facing these challenges like depression or undercutting as it's happening across Tanzania? And the second question was to go to Noel, who spoke about develop your partner. There's a fear that if you develop your partner, he may likely, the day he leaves you, the firm goes with all of your clients. What do you have to say about that? And the last tip is to the previous, actually, I wanted to say something. As we say, we talk about equality between men and women. It's a high time now, as the previous speaker said, they should start from the grassroots. Then I guess it's high time also when we go to the lounge, both of us pay the bills. We should start from there.
Thank you. I need to appreciate all the panelists, but specific, if moderator you allow, I would like to hear, apart from welfare and what else do you do? Because I'm interested with your presentation. I was discussing here with Principal of Tanzania Law School on how, of course, you can also be invited to, before lawyers will become into practice, at least at the earlier stage. So if you may allow at least for her to tell us, apart from well-being and welfare, what else does she do? Thank you.
Last one.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation from Noel, but it all sums up. Whether it's a well-being, succession is about people, but all in all, from my little experience and from a technological background, law firms are not investing in technology to store documents, restoration, archive, investing in a data center. I mean, even giving my title to somebody, I would ask, where are you going to store? Suddenly you get a call, where are your photographs? I mean, you know how things are happening. So succession planning is not about the people, but investing in a technology. That technology, even after 5 years, you can retrieve my documentation. Thank you.
Mine is just a tip to the Tanganyika Society, because the Vice President is here. We have the chapter conveners and a few members. Kenya has the Advocates Benevolent Association, which deals with welfare of lawyers. And it is a separate association, and it is really well governed. My suggestion to the TLS is that if you can meet your counterparts in Kenya and learn more about that association, perhaps if that is replicated in Tanzania, this kind of topics might start to fade away. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank. So we are going to start with Stephen. There's a question that was directed to you, so please take the floor.
Okay, very quickly. Yes, it is true, work is shrinking, but people need to innovate. In the morning, people are talking about the metaverse and crypto, and these are things that people need to learn. Other branches of law, I imagine. So the traditional sense of a law career that you finish, then you set up a law firm, is no longer a way to go. There are other branches of law. People need to innovate because, as someone said, change is the one thing that is constant. And and there's always room at the top, you know, because at the entry level, yes, people will struggle, but the best will always emerge. So innovate and go up. Other branches of law, sports law, for example, technology law, metaverse, crypto. And allow me to say this about cryptocurrency, because there's a lady who asked about it. It is not nuclear science. I taught myself crypto in 9 months. Some of the meanest traders, dealers. Kenya is, I think, at the top for peer-to-peer transactions now. You can teach yourself that, because the traditional sense of the law practice is fast disappearing. And yes, it's a challenge, but only the people who innovate and change will survive. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you for your question. So when you talk about developing your partner or developing the next man up, having the next man up mantra, one story that I've just texted the person that I had this conversation with, and he has allowed me to share the story, is last week I was having a chat with Dr. Kapinga from Bowman's. So there's a very thin line in Tanzania, the experience between succession planning and family-owned businesses. So most of our law firms, if you don't have the same surname as the founding partner, chances are that is not your business, from experience. So we need to get rid of that by putting up proper structures. I guess the next session we'll talk about law firm management. Shezada did a very good presentation in the first LawCon, how you can set up a practice that ensures everybody that is part of that practice feels the sense of belonging, takes that ownership. And as a partner, the clauses that you maybe bond, the advisory firms, the big fours, are very good or stringent clauses when a partner leaves on what they can do and what they cannot do. I guess big law firms have that as well. So there are things that you can put in place to ensure that is there. But also it's all about the person that is taking that practice, having the necessary knowledge to either serve your clients. Because you're thinking that somebody will run away with your clients, think of when you die. And worst case scenario, you don't have anyone in your family that has a legal background, for example. These clients are basically going to go away. But if it's a company limited by shares, then your shares definitely will go to your beneficiaries. And if that person is still there, then that you somehow still have an interest, right? So that will be my best guess in terms of responding to your question. I would also like to respond to the question from the gentleman from Exim Bank about technology. I think I heard it in my presentation, maybe because I didn't go through it. So there's a point on technology, on how you can organize your office and file organization to ensure that business continuity is there and that you don't lose, most importantly, clients' details and information are kept safe. But we could do more. I guess that's why we have a lot of IT or software-based companies sponsoring these events, because I think they're seeing that there's a gap with law firms in terms of how we're keeping our records. So I guess then they could be able to basically stay up the conversation and get some business for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bharti, please, is it the position or the question? But you can take the floor.
Okay, I think it was a question regarding what we do, and at Impactafia we provide employee well-being solutions, and these are all integrated well-being solutions. As I presented here, there are 7 dimensions. So there is physical, mental, emotional. So we provide counseling, we provide coaching, and we have got a whole professional team around that. We also do a lot of awareness webinars around well-being. And I think COVID has been very much a wake-up call, because pre-COVID well-being was like send an aerobic instructor 3 times a week, and that was considered to be well-being. Now it has changed considerably, and more organizations are recognizing the need for mental health, emotional health, as well as physical health. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So, for the interest of time, we won't have a closing statement from our panelists. So I thank you very much for participating in this overwhelming session. And I feel very honored and privileged to have a chance to moderate this session. So thank you very much. I'll mark this the end of our session. And